of a Veep situation. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maxine Stein, and I'm chair of the Membership Committee for Executives Club of Chicago. I'm happy to welcome all of you here. I truly love getting the chance to meet people at these programs and talk about the outstanding benefits that come from being a member of the Executives Club of Chicago. And today, I have the extra special privilege to introduce our guest of honor, Beth Ford. Over the last 6 years, I've attended more than 50 programs, panels, and forums put on by the Executives Club of Chicago. I can safely say that the high-profile CEOs, political and social leaders, and other world-renowned speakers at the Executives Club are second to none. But membership with the club offers so much more. Through industry-specific forums and leadership development experiences, the club offers the opportunity to build deep strategic relationships through meaningful connections and the ability to reach across industry, company, and function to build a powerful peer network. I encourage you all to learn more about the unique and impactful experiences offered through membership with the Executives Club. Today, we are thrilled to hear from a groundbreaking Fortune 500 leader, Land O'Lakes CEO, Beth Ford. Beth's career is one that has been dominated by time and talents that in more than 30 years of experience as a global operator have included senior and line leadership positions in 7 companies across 6 industries, including Mobil Oil, PepsiCo, and Scholastic. Beth's ability to draw on these vast experiences place her in a unique position as a leader and as an innovator. As we look to the future here in Chicago and beyond, we face a world marked with a rapidly growing population moving to urban areas, and the threat of food shortages is more prevalent than ever. We, as business and civic leaders, must adapt, innovate, and collaborate to ensure that our industries stay ahead of these potentially drastic changes. Having leaders like Beth, with deep leadership experience across industry lines, asking the tough questions and leading innovative solutions is more important than ever. After her remarks, Beth will be joined by Executives Club CEO Margaret Mueller, who will facilitate questions from the audience. If you'd like to submit a question, please text EXEC to 2233. That's EXEC 2233. Now, please join me in welcoming Land O'Lakes CEO, Beth Ford.
Thank you. I don't think I need the box to stand on. I'm like a giraffe. You're good. You're perfect just the way you are. Well, good afternoon. I am so pleased to be here today and have a conversation with you. I thought what I'd share is a couple of things. What I've been doing since I was named CEO, which would be almost a year now, I guess 10 months. I want to talk with you about innovation, the business. I want to talk to you about the ag sector specifically, and it's certainly a point of interest right now given the things that we see going on with trade. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And then I want to focus your attention on some of the carryover impacts, and one of the conversations I've been having more directly, the vibrancy of communities in rural America, and why we all need to pay attention to it, why it's an area of concern and an area of focus for me and for our business. So what has been happening this past year since I was named CEO? Well, I was doing the things that you would expect I would do, right? You name your senior team, you're out with customers. I was out with members, Land O'Lakes. Every time I hear Land O'Lakes and I say I work for Land O'Lakes, they say, oh, I love your butter. I'm like, thank you. Number one butter brand. And that's terrific. The fact of the matter is, however, Land O'Lakes is different than many people know and understand. We are a farmer-owned co-op. We retain farmer ownership. 1921, Upper Midwest dairy farmers wanted to get power in the channel, get their sweet cream butter into the population centers in the east, so they formed this co-op. And that was successful, this marketing co-op. And then from that, they moved to a supply co-op, animal feed, the things that were necessary for them on the farm. Now, that was a different feed business, but today we have, as part of our portfolio, Purina Animal Nutrition, not dog cat, all the livestock and lifestyle businesses. We have Winfield Technologies, so we're working on the acre with farmers. We have a sustain business. So it's much broader. Everybody knows us for our butter, and I've got a couple kids to put through college, so keep buying that butter. But the reality is that we're much broader, and we are food production and agribusiness. So what have I been doing? Well, I'm in D.C. quite a bit, talking about trade, talking about farm policy. I've been running the businesses. You name your senior team, and then you look at the operating environment, and the operating environment has been disrupted. So when I was going through the process to be named CEO, one of the things the board asked me to do was identify what I thought the operating environment was, and then what my strategic vision was for the company. My observation was that in the ag sector especially, from 2005 till 2013 or so, it was pretty good times. China was opening up. You had a good dollar situation. You had export markets, growth in grocery and retail and branded goods. And so that was pretty good. So if you were a leader of the business, you had to make some definitive moves with your portfolio, but you had some wind at your back. You could catch a wind in your sails. And you saw that growth in the company. Land O'Lakes actually moved and almost doubled in size at top line. It's a Fortune 200 company now. At the same time, really since 2013, and I don't think it's unique to this business or this industry, since 2013 and beyond, it has been disruptive. Now this chart gives you a view, it's one of the ones I used with the board, about strong industry headwinds, and it's coming at you from a variety of angles. Yes, it's coming at us from trade policy, but we also have issues with consolidation. This chart is about the consolidation in the number of animals or the acres moving, so the farms are getting a little bit larger. You have market uncertainty. You have a strong dollar. That's not been helpful for trade. So you have a variety of pressures. And I talk about that, and those are the ones that are most noted when I talk about agriculture. But the one that I've been focusing people's attention on that I think is going to be longer lasting and have bigger implications for the sector is the consolidation going on at retail. The issue and the disruption going on at retail. Actually, we were doing some work with McKinsey about the ag sector is one of the last areas to be disrupted by e-business. What happened? Grocery was happening, and grocery, when Amazon bought Whole Foods, that disrupted the sector. So what's going on there? Well, grocery manufacturers our grocery stores are trying to get traffic through the store. So how do they do that? Well, they're going to pressure milk price down because they need to get fresh goods on the street, and they want parents to have to come and shop, right? So you have pressure that goes all the way back to the farm. You also have issues where they're changing the way they go to market. So when a business like this has pressure, they're going to go back through the value chain, and they're going to try to determine where the profit pools are and try to capture the profit pools. So we've seen some of the grocery stores actually go back and put on processing capacity. Some of them are putting on their own animals. Now, we're a differentiated full business, right? We go right from the farmer right to retail. So in some ways, that plays to our strengths. We're an enterprise play. But what I point to here is that doing business the way we used to do it, even at our retail businesses, and we're owned by local rural retailers in our Winfield business, we can't continue to do that. That play that got us there is not going to get us to the future. Now, how do I know that? Who's winning in retail and who's not winning in retail? Well, look at the chart. I think we know who's not winning, right? This is not a mystery to us. And why is that? Why is that? No differentiated offer, disrupted by e-business and technology, it becomes a price game. That's a race to the bottom. You have to have a differentiated offer wrapped around what you're doing, what you're offering in the marketplace. Who's winning? Well, Best Buy's winning. Best Buy's a nice Minnesota headquartered company. What do we find out about Best Buy? Well, they don't make money on the TV sale. They make money on the market basket. They differentiate the services offering. They differentiate the services offering, which is exactly what we're trying to think about as we reset the way we're approaching and working with our farmers, not just our members, but other farmers in rural America to try to address what's happening. E-business, e-commerce, you are not protected by scale. You are not protected by scale. How do we know that? Cargill would say they've been disrupted in their heritage grain origination business, and that's a $120 billion top-line business. Walmart was disrupted. Everybody's racing to say, I have to have a reason consumers or different folks are interested in my offer in business. Because if you do not, you get margin compression, it's a race to the bottom, it's a price game. Now, I happen to think, and what I would say to our members, that we have the high ground. We have the high ground. Because we see the full continuum. You know who else is driving change? The customer. The consumer is driving change in the retail sector. The consumer is in charge. How do I know that? Well, there was a view in the marketplace, and that, by the way, it gets almost to be quasi-regulatory, right? Here's the quasi-regulatory. There's this, it starts to be a narrative, antibiotic-free in milk. Well, by the way, milk is always tested, it's always antibiotic-free, but let's put that aside. Because we're all getting our facts from, you know, all of the stuff online, the font of all knowledge, right? And then we have confirmation bias, and then we reconfirm, and then we reconfirm. So the customer is in charge, the consumer is in charge. And so we start to talk about this discussion around, you know, GMO, GMO-free. Well, we know that's marketing. There is no real health differential. How do we know that? Well, we're talking about GMO-free salt. It's a mineral, okay? I don't think so. So that's a marketing thing. But the consumer is in charge, and I say this because it pushes back through the sector. So that whole discussion of antibiotic-free, the use of BST in milk production, that moved to the point where different companies decided they could not source their ingredients if they included BST. It moved right back to the farmer. The dairy producers who had been using this technology for 20-some years suddenly had to stop using that because I couldn't separate the milk supply. I couldn't find a home for the milk, and I need to do that as part of the dairy co-op. I say that the consumer's in charge. It gets almost quasi-regulatory or unfunded mandates where you must change all the way back to the farmer level to address the consumer. So you've got a changing grocery environment. You've got a changing trade environment. You've got a different consumer. And I got to tell you, I love it. I love it. Disruption is the opportunity. Innovation is our advantage at Land O'Lakes and for other differentiated businesses. The fearless win. There is nobody more of an entrepreneur than the American farmer. It can be too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry. They figure it out. They are the original entrepreneurs. I say this frequently to our farmer members. You have the high ground. At local retail in rural America, you have the touch with the farmer that still matters. Differentiation, offer, you have to change. You're going to be comfortable, you're going to be uncomfortable. What was success before will not be success in the future, but disruption is our opportunity. Innovation is our advantage. That's the same at the farm level, and it goes all the way through our portfolio. You know, there is innovation across agriculture. Most people don't understand how high-tech agriculture is. In fact, we have a number of job openings that come into the industry every year, say 30 or 40,000, and they go unfilled. Because there's this view that it's not high tech, right? It's a guy in a pickup truck. Well, the guy does have a pickup truck. But guess what? There are gals in pickup trucks too, right? Probably 30% plus of farmers are women. It's very high-tech. Use of drones. We use satellite technology. You can go over a farmer's land. We're using, we can give them a prescription, what's happening on their land. We're using big data, AI, machine learning, all focused on the future. It will drive improved production. It will drive improved sustainable production. And so it's a very exciting industry, yet not well understood. And by the way, when you talk about technology in agriculture and food production, people get very uncomfortable, right? Because we think of it as very personal. Food and food production is very personal. And we think of the farmer in a particular way. Nobody more admired than the farmer. Many questions about farm practices. That's the way that works. But technology is in use in modern agriculture. And to me, nobody is more innovative than a farmer. Some of this will drive from efficiency. There'll be efficiency plays with technology. Some of it will improve sustainable production. We'll see where it all ends, right? Because we're in the beginning stages of the next level of innovation in this sector. One of the ways that we're leveraging technology is on sustainable production, dealing with climate variability, climate change. And you see that playing out right now. I was having some discussions in other environments while I've been here in New York, and they're saying, they want to talk trade policy. I said, what's most pressing right now for farmers right this minute is weather. The weather has been just atrocious in farm states. The farmers haven't been able to get out in the field and plant. It's too wet. So they're well behind the planting season. Normally at this point, they're 88% to 90% planted. They're probably 40-some%. And in key states like Indiana, Ohio, they've not even been able to plant. They're well behind. So what are we doing about that and about concerns from consumers about sustainable production? We hear this a lot about agriculture's impact on the climate. This is a right to operate issue. I say this to the farmers all the time. This is a right to operate issue. Consumers have concerns. We must put voice to what actions a farmer is taking to make sure they're improving their sustainable production. Nobody has more at stake than the farmer. This is about them handing their business, their farm, over to their children. 96% of farms are still owned by families. There's a whole narrative around big corporate farming. Understand what happens is farmer A goes and is going to retire or is going to sell, doesn't have anybody to hand it over to. Farmer B is over here, and Farmer B takes that land and buys that land. But this narrative about big corporate farming, it's not across the industry. There are some corporate farms, but 96% of farms are still family-owned. They are investing in sustainability, and we are excited about this. We work in our Sustain group on the acre with farmers on different strategies to improve their sustainable production, looking at variable rate application. Do you use no-till? Do you use stabilizers? All of these things that will improve their sustainable production and do it in a profitable way. What we know is that, of course, we have to make sure that this is profitable at the same time improving sustainability. They want to invest. They want to understand what the return on that investment is. So this Truterra Insight Engine, we're using 1 trillion data points. We are working directly with the farmer. We have information about their farm practices, what seeds they use. We have stacked data. We have soil samples, all of those things that allow us to help them understand what changes they can make in their operation that will improve profitability and at the same time improve sustainability. We're also partnered with folks like the Nature Conservancy, Environmental Defense Fund. We're part of the Gigaton Challenge for Walmart. We're trying to make sure that we're making progress. We're also partnered with things like Campbell's Soup. Campbell's wants to be able to advertise and market against the fact that they have sustainably produced or sourced grains. So we'll work with farmers in this area for wheat production, and that means that the grains that are being sourced are being used for goldfish crackers. It's an exciting and evolving area. The message I want to say is that this is use of technology in a very positive way, kind of in a circular economy. One of the ways we're doing this is in California, by the way, is that we have a number of dairy producers there, and methane reduction is of concern. So we help them invest in digesters that captures the methane, get to some compressed natural gas. We then partnered with the state of California, and then we take that gas and we drop it into a pipeline from a gas skid, and it goes down into LA, where it runs city buses and city vehicles. That's a positive circular economy. That means that the dairy farmer is making some money for providing energy. We're using it for good purpose for mass transit. That's the kind of innovation that is exciting, the use of technology in different ways to improve sustainable production over the long term. So it's exciting, but one of the things that I was mentioning that I want to talk about, that has my attention, because when we talk about why I went to this business, came from New York, went to Land O'Lakes, it was this discussion of feeding a growing world population, right? Set to be 10 billion people, with less land available, less water. Implications for that, we're farmer-owned. So that by 2050, we have to be able to feed. It's almost like food production has to double during that time. Less available land, less available water. And that still has my attention, but nearer in, that's not going to be a linear journey. Nearer in, I'm concerned about this rural divide, the rural-urban divide, and the lack of reinvestment in rural communities. We must have vibrant rural communities. There are issues with education, healthcare, digital divide. You know, a couple of stats that I think are shocking, because I've had a number of pieces of research going on about, what's going on in rural America. Here's some of the realities. Food insecurity. Rural counties account for 78% of the highest food insecurity rates. Medicaid, since 2013, over 100 rural hospitals have closed, and there's a shortage of 40,000 doctors. Do you know that 3 of 4 farmers or farm workers have been directly impacted by the opioid crisis? Why is that? Rural hospitals have closed. Farming is a dangerous business. There's an injury. They go to a doctor a ways away. They can't get back and forth very frequently. Now the prescription is for 30 pain meds instead of 10 for those of us in urban areas. Medicaid reimbursement rates haven't kept up, and the rural poor, thus the reinvestment in rural hospitals, decline. There's a lack of investment in rural broadband. So I love all the discussion about the new technologies and the innovation and the high-tech data that's going on in agriculture. The problem is that 30% of farmers don't have broadband access. 30%. And where I get concerned even more is that this is where my farmer members live. This is where they're raising their family. This is where they're reinvesting in their communities. And so because there's no broadband access, and this was an area that I wanted to focus on, when I took over as CEO, I said, please give me a map of areas in our region that don't have broadband access. Who can't leverage the tools? Where can we help? And they said, well, they want the zip code. The phone company wants the zip code. And I said, well, give me the map. They said, give me the zip code. And I said, give me the map. And they said, it's not that easy, Beth. I said, why isn't it that easy? And they said, because the reality is that perhaps there's a McDonald's or 7-Eleven in the community, and they laid a line, so they have broadband there, but they don't have it outside there. Or they laid a line in maybe one of the schools, but they don't have it out there. So we need to think about this. Telemedicine, they can't take advantage of that. Can't take advantage. How are the kids finishing their homework? Their parents are driving them to McDonald's parking lot so that they can get broadband access to finish their schoolwork. This is a very important issue for us to think about. 19% of the population is living in rural America. They comprise 44% of the armed services. What does that tell us about their willingness to invest and do the hard work? What is the reinvestment? How can we get vibrancy in rural communities if we don't invest? How do new businesses end up in rural communities if they don't have technology? Right now, it's a challenge for a farmer from an efficiency perspective. One article I read, I agreed with completely. In 10 years, it'll be catastrophic. We don't know the changes. We know the changes are coming from the leverage of technology. Who's getting hurt worse? The most of the pain in the ag sector is coming in from the mid-sized or small farmers, right? And those living in that community are reinvesting in their communities. This is why I love the co-op model. The profits that we make, the tools that we have that enable the businesses, go back to the members in their pocket who reinvest in their communities and in their farms. It's a very intimate model. It makes it really special. It makes it really hard in times like this, where they have had multiple years of challenges. Nobody's looking for the easy way out. Nobody's looking for the handout, trade aid, all of those things. Everybody wants trade. They want competition. They are entrepreneurs. I respect them greatly. It is the greatest privilege of my 33-year career to work on behalf of the American farmer and our farmer members. The realities here are something that deserve our attention, our focus. Because reinvestment in these communities is necessary for a vibrant food source for all of us who are living in the cities. You know, I live in the Twin Cities, still in a rural area. It's colder in the Twin Cities than here in Chicago, I'll tell you right now. But it deserves our attention. We have to focus on these areas. You know, counties with better connectivity tend to have higher yields. So there is a real return on this investment. Urban and suburban Americas have better access to good jobs, good hospitals, and the arts and culture. Economic uncertainty, however, is a shared American experience. This narrative of this divide that we're all getting, you know, here versus there, there's some shared experiences. This is one of them. Economic uncertainty is a shared American experience, both urban and rural. So the question is, as we're pointing out to these challenges and you know, saying, boy, these are really significant, and I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, okay? I'm trying to give you a focus of attention because I think we fall short. We say, boy, the farm economy, tough, trade. There are people's lives at stake. Farmer suicides have increased dramatically. It's that intimate. It is that intimate when you are in rural counties. Nobody's looking for anybody's sympathy or handouts. They're looking for reinvestment, innovation, excitement about rural America. So the question is how we're going to address these challenges. Well, the good news is Americans share a sense of optimism about the future. This is why another reason I admire the American farmer so much. It can be an impressively difficult time. It has been unbelievably challenging, yet they share this sense of optimism. They're looking forward. They're looking at what is next. Our board comes in, and before the meeting, they go and do a project in the Twin Cities to help others. They're investing in their community. They're investing in other communities. So they share a sense of optimism about the future. And the good news is Americans believe that agriculture and the food industry are an essential part of the economy. The work is meaningful. What they do, what we do at Land O'Lakes, and I tell this to my team, is essential, not just for the future, but is of great importance. Nutrition, food security, these are major issues, and everybody agrees with that. The agriculture and food industry is viewed as helping to address climate change. I want to go back to my comment. We are directly working with members, with farmers, in their farms, on their operation to improve their sustainable production. And true to our co-op nature, we are looking to bring people together. We're trying to show up in different places. So here I am talking with you. We were at South by Southwest. We had a convening with different chefs. We had a nutritionist. We had people from the Mayo Clinic. We had scientists. We have to have a conversation about food production for the future, about biodiversity, about the challenges in the industry. So we're trying to show up in different places. By the way, I had a change for our annual meeting too, because farmers also have to listen to consumers, consumer concerns. So this last annual meeting, what we did is we had a panel. It was consumers, literally, we pulled them off the street. There were some real characters there. And I said to the farmers, I said, you're not going to like this. You're not going to like what you hear. It's going to make you really uncomfortable, which of course I love. And it did make them uncomfortable. The misunderstanding, the lack of understanding of what agriculture is about, what is truly sustainable, what is doable. And as they left, they were like, oh my gosh, we have so much work to do. We have so much work to do. So we did some training on social media for them so that they can get involved in the conversation. We have to have a conversation. We have to share ideas. I like the old days where we could have a disagreement, might be fact-based, with some analysis, and then we move on. We're trying to move the ball down the court. I'm all about moving the ball down the court. I think that there is a narrative of a good food, bad food. We're more progressive than you. We're more informed than you. We're more educated than you in the cities versus the urban areas. And I think that is a very dangerous proposition to put values statements around differences in understanding about food production and agriculture. And it's why we can't hear each other. And there are going to be challenges. That's climate change, lack of land, lack of water, the grand challenge in front of us, feeding a growing world population. We're showing up in different places to try to address this, and at the same time, we're trying to make sure we are a powerful, consolidated voice for rural America. This is important for all of us: immigration, immigration reform, broadband access, healthcare, infrastructure, schools. We can all get behind that. Go back to my comment. 19% of the population, 44% of the military. Willing to make the investment to do the hard work. That's what we need to focus on. What are we willing to do in different areas to make sure that we're investing in a vibrant rural economy that will be central to effective food production for all of us going forward? Farmers have always been entrepreneurs. It is the very nature of farming. And at Land O'Lakes, we are built on a culture of innovation. Those upper Midwest dairy farmers, 1921, we're almost coming into our 100th anniversary. I'm excited about the meaningful work. I'm excited about the future of Land O'Lakes and about agriculture. I'm excited to share this information with you today, and we're looking for you to partner with us to address some of these challenges, and of course, to buy our butter. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
You bet.
Appreciate it. So what's your answer, stick or spread?
Stick or spread? I'm probably a stick person. Yeah, I do more stick, but the spread is great too. We have squeezable now.
Yes.
It's almost corn on the cob season, and I think that that's everything for me. The corn on the cob season, yes.
I was stick until I had kids, and then spread is so much easier with them.
Yes.
So again, please text your questions to, you type exec to 22333, and we'll be sure to get them through to Beth.
Great.
Thank you so much
You
for
bet.
sharing all that. Fascinating. We'd love to just hear a little bit about you too, and your
Okay.
story. First job.
My first job out of undergrad, I'm from Iowa originally. First job when I was 11 or 12, because I'm from Iowa. I have 7 siblings. I'm number 5 of 8. 2 older brothers, 2 older sisters, younger sister, 2 younger brothers. So I was busy wearing a lot of hand-me-downs and not getting the good food. I was a joke, didn't know there was white meat on a chicken until I was 17. So my older brothers left. And so I worked as detasseling corn and working the beans. And then in college, if you wanted to go to college, you had to kind of make your own way. So I had those glamorous jobs. I was a janitor. I cleaned toilets, and I did a number of other jobs in college. One of the jobs I had in college, and those of you who are cyclists are going to know this, they had only a few tall buildings in Iowa on campus. One was Storms, and one of these dormitories, and I was the elevator operator. And I'll tell you why. Because that was when the drinking age was lower, so they'd have the floor parties, and they wanted to make sure that people stopped vomiting in the elevator. So I was like a bouncer. No, you can't get on the elevator. Take the stairs. You look green in the face. I'll tell you, I was so popular. It was just everything for me. Out of undergrad, my first job was Mobil Oil. I worked in line operations, tanker and barge, trucking facilities, right in the docks, right in the refineries, and manufacturing facilities. Usually me and 100 dudes.
Yeah. So what was the most important lesson you learned in one of your first jobs that you still take with you today?
The hard work, the value of the hard work, the importance of it, and the importance of coming in as an optimistic, clear leader about what success looks like, understanding these people have families. I mean, my dad was a truck driver when I was growing up, and a used car salesman at one point. I mean, so this is the hard work and the importance of having a good clear direction as a leader and provide that to a line employee, it was what I took away from that, the value of it and the importance of being clear.
Yeah. So last week we had Jim Umpleby, the CEO of Caterpillar, and he talked about his path to CEO, and it wasn't linear. And that along the way, he took some lateral moves, even demotions, and I've heard you talk about that as well.
Yeah.
If you can share a little bit about how you knew that that was a thing to do, and I think for some of the young leaders in the room, that may seem a little scary. So if you could just share a little bit about
first
your
of all,
path.
I think it's important. I always think out of undergrad, it would be really important to get as broad as you can and be out in the field for businesses. I mean, going into headquarters might seem really sexy, and some businesses it is, but you really learn about the business when you are in the remote locations or in the business of the business. So I always think that is an important thing to think about. In terms of taking sideways moves or whatever, so I've moved and I've worked in 7 companies, 6 industries. And I made deliberate moves. Probably not my first 10 years, I was just learning to be a business person, and frankly was worried about whether I had enough money to pay the rent and go to the party over the weekend. So I wasn't that focused on what am I doing. But I was getting experience, and even there, understanding what my gaps were after I got my master's and was moving along in my career. I recognized what I need to do is to be more deliberate about getting experiences in different ways. Took one job because I knew I could get more international experience. I knew my master's had to be in finance. I needed more experience in that area. I took some sideways moves because I knew I could pick up a function like HR, and I needed to understand what that was about. So I was broadening myself and willing to take a sideways move or even a little bit down because I understood that was going to give me experience I needed to continue to move my career along, and so that's the rationale for different decisions I made.
Yeah. So now you're in the role. You have the top job.
I do.
What has been surprising, or what were you maybe not as prepared for?
Well, I was COO before I took the job, or I was hired for this job. And so COO, I was running all the businesses and the functions. So this wasn't new to me. What I think has not necessarily just been surprising, the thing that you don't understand when you are the second versus the first in a company is that every meeting by definition is your meeting. I don't get to go to a meeting and kind of say, like, I'm going to click on my phone, Just show up, maybe. No. And that includes meetings in the office, and everybody deserves your best attention. You need to have done your homework. You need to know what they want to talk with you about. They deserve that. The employees deserve that. And then just the breadth of the constituencies. While I've been running the businesses and functions, there are multiple external constituencies. Everybody who wants time, everybody who wants your attention. That includes folks in the community who want you to work on nonprofits. It includes, I'm on publicly traded company boards. I think I'm on 10 boards. I was like, enough with the boards. I can't do any more boards. And so that what you don't understand is, I think, the level of intensity. It's a shortcut to say, boy, I travel a lot, or boy, I'm on. That's not really it. It's the focus that you have to have and that you must have in order to make sure you are communicating well and being a good partner in the business with your team.
Yep. So we have a bunch of questions coming in.
Okay.
So tariffs and trade, big topic. Everyone's talking about it. How are your members feeling? What are their reactions?
Well, they want trade. I mean, again, go back to nobody wants a handout. Nobody wants the interim payment. More importantly, they worked for 25 years to develop these markets. Exports are critical for profitability of production agriculture. And that has been a positive export balance. And so they want trade. And their concern is that the market is going to move away from them because now you see expanded soybean production in Brazil and elsewhere, and they're starting to take some of the market. In Europe and the dairy side starting to take some of the market. They're concerned. My comment about what's going on in rural communities directly relates to the challenges on profitability that have been underway in the agriculture period for the last couple of years, 3 to 4 or 5 years. And this is difficult. It is incredibly difficult, and this weather situation this year is just, I'm waiting for the locusts to show up. I mean, for real. This has got every challenge you can imagine. And now bankers are starting to de-risk their portfolio, harder to get operating loans. The good news versus the 80s when I was in college and land values dropped and then interest rates rose, they're in a bit better position. Land values have held primarily and interest rates have stayed a bit lower. But I get the question a lot on trade and tariffs. They want trade. They, at the same time, I want to be very clear, they have been supportive of the administration's efforts to address issues of theft from China. They want fair trade agreements. So they'll stand, again, in the breach as they've been asked by the administration to do it. But I can tell you that time is short now. And many people are losing their businesses. When 2 dairy farmers a day are going out of business in a heritage dairy state like Wisconsin, it's disaster.
Yeah. So a lot of the questions that are coming in from the room is, what can this individual person sitting and listening to you do? Because I think they are feeling a call to action and want to do something. So we'll run through some of these. So this is an urban business community.
It
right?
is.
And we particularly have urban-rural divide in Illinois. It's a big topic. We're in our legislative session in Springfield right now. So what can an urban business person who's sitting here listening to you, what can they do in their daily life to help address this?
Well, I think, first of all, familiarize yourself with what the investments are in rural America. And it is unfortunate because that's the budget process. It feels like, hey, we have some issues right here in Chicago. I'm sure you have that. And of course, all the news narrative is, geez, you've got all sorts of problems with shootings and, so we got that ends up being a narrative on the news. I would recommend that you push for broadband access in rural communities because you can't solve all of these issues, right? Medicaid expansion would have been important in urban communities as well. This is not significant, but you see the carryover impact in rural communities that shuts down hospital because the rural poor can't fund and they don't get Medicaid reimbursement for rural hospitals. So I've said, well, we can't address all of this, but I know a primary issue that will leave rural communities behind is broadband access in rural communities. So what can you do? You can be supportive and push the government and the state government to make investments, to support investments in broadband access for rural communities. That left behind, it's 13% less likely that you will go to college if you are from a rural community, because colleges don't even go recruit there because many of them can't afford to go to college, and there's only a handful of them because they got a small school. So they're not going to make the investment to go and try to recruit somebody from a rural community. And I think if you understand that framework, that if you have a vibrant rural economy, it is supportive of the city's economy. It's not an either or, it cannot be an either or. Now, we all agree there are funding decisions that are made at the state government and local government every day, and they're trying to prioritize. But it can't be all investment because all the population is here. It has to be, we have to have a vibrant rural economy. If you are an innovator, if you're an entrepreneur, think of rural communities for investment, for jobs. That's what they want. They want to raise their families well. They want the same thing everybody else wants. Good schools, opportunity. And I think that's what they could do. You could understand that, and you can push yourself as a city resident for investment in rural communities, including and starting with broadband access.
There's another question about what an individual can do. So food waste statistics, staggeringly high in the US. Mm-hmm. How is this coming to play? What can people be doing personally to be responsive?
Well, there are many ways that people think about, their food waste. Hey, they're going to shop only every day for what they need. Many companies are looking at other types of packaging, for instance, so that you don't have that waste. So that grand challenge, you're right. This is the twofold. There's after harvest waste in rural America or in developing economies because they don't have refrigeration, they don't have good quality standards, so they get waste there. And then here it's post-consumption waste. All of us have this. You buy fresh goods, you throw them out. Now we've got, what's the shelf life? I'm going to throw that out. We waste quite a bit. What I've seen happen in a lot of communities is that they make sure that any of that waste is going to areas of the cities or elsewhere that have food security challenges. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't hope to know what's going on in everybody's day to day. We've tried to work on what is that. How are we going to address the challenge from that regard? How are we going to address food production? We have something called our Global Food Challenge, for instance, where we have college kids from different universities work, understand what our business is, what agriculture is about. We have a development division. We work in Africa and other areas. A number of projects were funded by the Gates Foundation, by USAID, showing what ag practices can help on food security issues in Afghanistan and elsewhere. And we have these college kids who go through this program, and they actually spend a couple weeks in Africa understanding this. It doesn't even have to be from an ag school. Sometimes we hire them from Northwestern or George Washington or something. Why? We want more people excited about the industry. We want more people working on the challenge. We have to have other voices, and we have to all do our own homework. Science and technology in addressing this challenge is going to be important. Yes, food waste. Yes, other ways. But we have to stop confirming for ourselves that there's a good food, bad food type of a narrative, better, less than. Just one comment on that. The real, just pain I have with that is people are misinformed. And I recall so dramatically, I was sitting with other moms. My son's a swimmer, one of my sons, and we were at swim practice. And I heard her talking about this year she wasn't going to buy any clothes, and they weren't going to go on any vacation because she was really focused on her kids' health, and she was only going to buy organic and a certain thing, and she was going to make that investment. And I said, I heard you talking. Might I inform you this is an area of which I have a bit of familiarity. And I tried to tell her. But what has happened is that she was made to feel like she wouldn't be a good mom. Right? So there's no convincing. Because that goes right to your heart. And all I would wish is people were doing the work of informing themselves about what is true and what is not true. Food waste being one of these issues, other areas that we need to make sure we're being fact-based and understand what the risks are on both sides of this equation when we make decisions like that.
Yep. So I would like to talk about what you're doing in developing countries, because we did have Melinda Gates here a couple weeks ago, and she talked about it. I think it was surprising for people to hear that 30% of farmers were women. I think that number is even higher in developing.
It is because, first of all, it's a year-round income. Oftentimes we will be working on dairy production. For instance, the Gates Foundation, we're partnered with them on something called PAID, where we're looking at artificial insemination in the dairy herds in this particular area to make sure that they have year-round income. And most of the time, those are women who are the farmers. And so that's what we're trying to do, is set that income source up. Then they reinvest in their communities. Then their kids can go to school. Then. Yeah. This is also one of the pushes I have on this whole GMO-free discussion. I think the president of Purdue University even said, hey, this is a moral issue. Because many of the folks in these emerging economies or challenged economies won't use those seeds that are helpful for drought tolerance, and there are no health differential for things that would make them more productive as farmers. And from that, then their children die. I mean, they just don't have an income. So all of these areas, and partnering with the Gates Foundation has been part of that. We're trying to do this. Our farmer members started this NGO in 1981, and the reason is they saw their neighborhood as the world. And they always help in the neighborhood, and they felt that they could help translate some of their practices to help the others who are not as far along in their practices from a farming perspective.
What do you think the role of Africa is in the future of agriculture?
Well, population growth is going to be significant in Africa, and agriculture is going to be central. In fact, we have a business in South Africa, a crop protection business. We also built a mill in Kenya, because animal agriculture is going to be central there. I mean, the population growth is going to be significant in Africa and India. Most of the world's population is outside the borders of the United States. So helping them understand improved production practices is important. So it'll be key because their population is going to be so big.
You talked about a lot of technological innovation. What are you most excited about? What's going to really change this dramatically in the next year or two?
Data. I always think of a conversation I had with our head of research for our Purina business, Cindy Lumen, and I said, hey, it's budget time. Are you needing more PhDs? What are we doing on, whatever? And she said, no, I need more statisticians. I need more help on analytics, data capture. Every business is a technology business now. Everybody's a data business. So data capture, the insights you can derive from that, and the analytics is going to be central.
So how do maybe smaller, mid-sized, innovative tech companies get in touch with your member farmers? How do they try to get their technology in their hands?
They come in through our Winfield Technologies business. We often, I was at an event yesterday with innovators in the space, and they came up with some wonderful ideas. And so we're contacted many times, sometimes directly through the farmers, sometimes through our Winfield Technologies business, some through our IT. Some people just send me something on LinkedIn, or they send me an email, and I try to push it over to my team to take a look. So there are many ways that an innovator, nobody's shy anymore. They'll come right at you with their innovation. If their innovation is special, they'll pound the table. They want you to take a look at it. Good for them. I'm all about that.
So we've talked a lot about some misconceptions. Mm-hmm. What's the one that sort of bugs you the most, you want to correct as much as possible?
About farmers?
Just everything that we've talked about today.
No, the misperception, I think, that I have, or that I see, that I think is most challenging. I've gone through the things that I think are the most challenging, and all farmers are not men. But farmers are business people. They are business people. They are entrepreneurs. They're innovators. They're tech forward. And that's, I think, the thing I want to push. And from that, we should be excited about this, excited about the sector. There are challenges. We've reviewed those challenges. It takes all of us. We want vibrant rural communities and urban communities. But we aren't that far apart. It isn't a difference. I lived in urban areas. I lived in New York City for 15 years. I've been in urban environments, Los Angeles, Chicago. I lived here. And now I've got that Cubs uniform, and that's everything for me. So I want us not to get pulled down in social media narratives and remember what it's like when we just try to move the ball down the court. When we're trying to solve problems together. It doesn't mean we're always going to, I don't know what goes on at your dinner table, but I certainly don't agree around my dinner table all the time. Mm-hmm. But then we're like, okay, we're going to agree to disagree on that one, and then we move forward. And that's what I think is the best approach with these challenges in front of us.
Yep. So we're going to have to wrap up. We only have a minute or two. Mm-hmm. We covered a lot today. Thank you. Mm-hmm. If there's only one thing that people are going to remember 6 months from now that they take away from this, what do you want them to remember?
I want them to remember how exciting agriculture is, and why we all should see the farmer as the entrepreneur they are, as the innovators they are, and at the same time understand the challenges. And it takes all of us to address those challenges. And I'm excited to partner with anybody who wants to do that.
Thank you
for
your leadership, your authenticity. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Your team said you'd stick around for maybe 5 minutes and just let people meet you.
Sure.
Okay, wonderful.
That's good. Thank you.